building more than 500 feet away. Now, this event.
The shooter apparently escaped and is still at large, according to police. Kirk.
The investigation is ongoing. But I want to.
The sun was high above Utah Valley University when the silence was broken by a single, devastating shot. Students, staff, and guests who had come to hear a political speech suddenly found themselves running for cover, unaware that the stage had turned into the scene of one of the most shocking acts in modern American campus history. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was struck in the neck during what should have been an ordinary event. Within seconds, confusion reigned. Sirens cut through the mountain air, and the question that still haunts us began echoing: who could do this, and why? In the hours that followed, federal and local investigators swarmed the campus. What they discovered set the tone for a case that would grip the entire nation. A rifle, carefully wrapped in a towel, hidden near the rooftop from where the shot was fired. A screwdriver left behind, suggesting preparation, almost ritual. And then, the most damning clue of all: DNA. Not just a trace, but enough for the FBI to confirm a match. The profile belonged to a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson, a young man whose life was about to be dissected under the harshest possible light. But DNA was only the beginning. Prosecutors claimed Robinson had left a digital trail, messages that spoke of retrieving weapons from a hidden spot, of changing outfits to avoid detection, and even of engravings on bullet casings that carried slogans and symbols of hate. To investigators, it looked less like a moment of madness and more like a carefully prepared mission. A mission with a political target. Yet, as chilling as the evidence sounded, questions immediately arose. Were the messages real? Were they sent through Discord, as investigators first claimed, or through another platform? Could they have been misinterpreted? And what about a handwritten note, allegedly destroyed, but then painstakingly reassembled by federal agents? Could this note prove intent beyond any doubt? Or was it one more piece of evidence caught in the fog of a chaotic investigation? Meanwhile, the state of Utah held its breath. News anchors called it a political assassination attempt. The governor confirmed that the suspect was not cooperating, and prosecutors prepared the harshest possible response: capital charges, the kind of words that carry the weight of ultimate punishment. This was no longer just about one man being attacked. It was about a nation confronting the dark intersection of politics, extremism, and youth radicalization. Tyler Robinson was not the kind of name that most people in Utah recognized. He was just 22, a face in the crowd, a young man described by classmates as quiet, sometimes distant, a Reddit kid who seemed more comfortable online than in real life. But behind the digital veil, a different image was taking shape. According to investigators, Robinson's political views had hardened in recent years. Family members remembered tense dinners where he criticized conservative figures, calling them hypocrites, accusing them of spreading hate, and among those he singled out most often was Charlie Kirk. Friends told law enforcement that Robinson seemed obsessed with him, an obsession that teetered between anger and fixation. That private anger left traces. On his phone and in chat rooms, Robinson allegedly wrote about weapons. Messages from his roommate, who later cooperated with authorities, revealed disturbing lines. Instructions about hiding a rifle in a bush, about engraving bullets with slogans, about leaving the weapon wrapped in a towel. These were not the words of an ordinary student. They were the words of someone preparing for something irreversible. His personal life was equally complex. Robinson lived with a transgender roommate who by all accounts was shocked at what unfolded. Yet this same roommate was the one who showed investigators the online exchanges, screenshots of discussions about rifles, scopes, and disguises, messages that seemed to outline a plan step by step. Some of these conversations, officials first claimed, took place on Discord. Later, the company denied it. Perhaps they were on a different app, perhaps shared across platforms. But one fact remained. Robinson had been talking about this long before the shot was fired. And then there was his father. When the FBI released surveillance images of the suspected gunman, it was not a stranger who first made the connection. It was Robinson's own father who recognized the figure in the blurry frame. He urged his son to turn himself in. In that moment, family ties collided with the harsh weight of the law. A father, torn between love and duty, became the unwitting key that unlocked the hunt. Who was Tyler Robinson? A lonely young man drifting into extremism? A political zealot radicalized by online echo chambers? Or something more complicated, a person whose personal struggles blurred into the toxic landscape of digital hate? September sunlight spilled across the campus of Utah Valley University. Thousands gathered for a political event, eager to hear Charlie Kirk speak. Students filled the amphitheater, conversations buzzing, the energy of debate and controversy in the air. Yet above them, from the shadow of a rooftop, someone else was waiting. Investigators believe Tyler Robinson climbed to that vantage point, carrying with him not just a rifle but an intention shaped over weeks, maybe months. How he gained access to the roof is still unclear. Some say a door was left unlocked. Others suggest that the building's security protocols were too thin for such a high-profile event. What is certain is that only 6 campus officers were assigned to protect more than 3,000 people that day. No drones, no rooftop surveillance, no expanded police presence. In hindsight, the vulnerability was obvious. Witnesses described the confusion as the shot rang out. People screamed and scattered, not knowing where the danger came from. Within minutes, law enforcement swarmed the campus. SWAT teams combed the wooded edges. Dogs sniffed culverts. Officers knocked on doors and collected surveillance video. In those first frantic hours, rumors spread faster than facts. Some said a suspect was already in custody. Then he was released. Another was detained, then cleared. The public, desperate for clarity, received contradiction after contradiction. But the truth was out there, hidden in plain sight. A rifle, abandoned and wrapped in a towel, lay in the brush not far from where Robinson had stood. That towel, investigators later revealed, carried his DNA. A screwdriver recovered from the roof carried it too. Surveillance video captured his gray Dodge Challenger moving through the area. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed a picture that pointed to only one man. At the same time, digital traces emerged. Messages about retrieving and hiding the rifle. A confession in an online group chat where Robinson allegedly wrote, "It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry." A handwritten note, reconstructed by FBI experts, where he implied his target had always been Charlie Kirk. To prosecutors, it was the chain of evidence they needed. To the public, it was both shocking and confusing. Could one person have planned this with such precision? Or was there something bigger, a network, an ideology, maybe even encouragement from others behind the trigger? For Utah, the attack shattered the illusion of safety. For the nation, it was a chilling reminder that political violence no longer belongs to the shadows. It can strike at any moment, in any place, from the rooftop of a university to the heart of a community. Why did Tyler Robinson pull the trigger? That is the question that prosecutors, investigators, and the public continue to wrestle with. Was it ideology? Was it personal rage? Or was it a storm of both, fueled by the echo chambers of the internet? Those closest to him said they had seen changes. Once quiet, Robinson grew more rigid in his politics. He criticized Charlie Kirk during family dinners, describing him as a man who spread hate. Yet curiously, some reports suggested the opposite, that Robinson was angry because Kirk wasn't conservative enough, that he was influenced by the far-right Groper movement, a faction loyal to Nick Fuentes, known for its confrontational tactics and disdain for Kirk. In his messages, Robinson left hints that politics was only part of the story. Investigators say shell casings at the scene carried engravings of anti-fascist slogans, song lyrics, and memes. This strange blend of radical symbols painted a portrait of a young man trapped between online ideologies, unable or unwilling to reconcile them with reality. But there was also his personal life. Robinson lived with a roommate who was transitioning, someone who would later hand over key messages to police. That roommate insisted they were blindsided by the attack. Yet their conversations revealed chilling details. Instructions to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, to leave it hidden in bushes, to change outfits after the act. Whether this was meant as a confession or as twisted bravado, it proved that Robinson was speaking about violence long before it happened. Then came the ultimate revelation. According to reports, Robinson admitted responsibility in an online group chat, writing, "Hey guys, I have bad news. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." If true, this was not only an acknowledgement of guilt, but also a glimpse into his state of mind, remorse mixed with defiance, an attempt to explain without truly explaining. Motives can be difficult to pin down. They shift like shadows, shaped by politics, identity, loneliness, and rage. But the evidence suggests that Robinson's world had narrowed into an echo chamber of hate and contradiction, whether from the far right, the far left, or simply his own personal demons. His obsession with Charlie Kirk became the lens through which everything else blurred. The attack on Charlie Kirk did more than wound one man. It exposed cracks in the system meant to prevent such tragedies. Utah Valley University had hosted thousands that afternoon. An amphitheater filled with more than 3,000 attendees, surrounded by tall buildings that offered clear vantage points. Yet security was astonishingly thin. Only 6 uniformed campus officers were present. No drones scanned the skies. No rooftop surveillance. No coordination with local police, who later said they would have gladly assisted if asked. Students themselves noticed the gap. One young attendee told reporters that he had seen more security at sports events than at this high-profile political gathering. For many, the message was unmistakable. The campus had underestimated the risk, and the price of that miscalculation was nearly fatal. The chaos of the investigation compounded the problem. In the first hours after the shot, conflicting reports flooded the media. A suspect in custody, then released. Another detained, then cleared. Even the FBI director, Kash Patel, issued statements that were later walked back. The confusion bred mistrust. Was the public getting the full story, or only fragments carefully controlled by officials? And then there was the community itself. Utah, a state unaccustomed to such acts, was shaken. Signs and messages appeared in Salt Lake City, some mourning Charlie Kirk, others angrily debating what had led to this moment. The event became not just a crime, but a mirror reflecting deep divisions, political, cultural, and generational. Local reporters described the tension vividly. SWAT teams combing wooded areas, canines sniffing culverts, police knocking on doors for surveillance footage. The campus locked down, students huddled in classrooms, unsure whether the attacker was still nearby. And in the middle of it all, the lingering question: how did Tyler Robinson get access to that roof? And how long had he been planning? The answers remain partial at best. Officials insist procedures were followed. Critics argue those procedures were never enough. But what is clear is this: the attack revealed vulnerabilities not just in security but in communication, in the way authorities relay information to the public, and in the readiness of institutions to protect against political violence. For many in Utah, the aftermath felt heavier than the event itself. The realization that it could happen there in a community that prided itself on safety, faith, and order left an unease that will not fade quickly. As the dust settled, the legal machinery turned toward Tyler Robinson. He was booked on charges of aggravated attack, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. But prosecutors made it clear these were only the opening moves. Utah's governor and even the President of the United States hinted that the harshest penalty, the death sentence, should be on the table. The case is now shaping into one of the most consequential trials Utah has seen in decades. Prosecutors intend to pursue capital charges. The evidence they hold is formidable. DNA on the towel that wrapped the rifle, DNA on the screwdriver left on the roof, digital messages about retrieving and hiding the weapon, engravings on bullet casings, and even Robinson's own words in online chats admitting responsibility. It is the kind of chain that prosecutors dream of, each link binding tighter than the last. But defense lawyers see another story. They point to the confusion in the early hours, the contradictions between platforms like Discord and text messages, the possibility that Robinson's statements online could have been misinterpreted or even fabricated. They will argue about mental health, about influence from online extremism, about whether a young man lost in echo chambers truly understood the consequences of his actions. The trial will not be quick. Utah County's public defenders are already overloaded with other capital cases. Hearings will drag. Appeals will follow. The courtroom will become a stage where not only Robinson's guilt but America's divisions are laid bare. Was this a political assassination, as many claimed? Was it a lone act of obsession, a young man driven by isolation and rage? Or was it the predictable result of a society where digital hate bleeds into real-world violence? As Robinson faces his first court appearance, the stakes could not be higher. If convicted on capital charges, he may face the ultimate penalty in a state where executions remain a grim reality. For prosecutors, the case is about justice and deterrence. For the defense, it will be about context, motive, and perhaps saving a life by arguing that death is not the answer. But one truth stands above all. Whatever happens in that courtroom will echo far beyond Utah. It will shape debates about security, free speech, online extremism, and the cost of political division in America. The shooting of Charlie Kirk has already left its mark, not just on one university, not just on one state, but across the entire country. It is a case that forces America to confront uncomfortable truths about politics, extremism, and the spaces in between. For Utah, the lesson is stark. Even the safest-seeming communities are vulnerable. A university amphitheater became the stage for violence because basic assumptions about risk proved disastrously wrong. 6 officers for 3,000 people was never enough. And yet, hindsight is cruel. Those responsible for security insist they followed policy. Families of students insist that policy failed them. For law enforcement, the challenge is equally sharp. The rush of false reports, the confusion about custody, the contradictions over Discord or text messages, all revealed how fragile public trust can be. When information comes too slowly or too inconsistently, conspiracy rushes to fill the void. The public is left guessing at motives, left doubting whether they are being told the truth. For society, the question cuts deeper. Tyler Robinson was not a foreign agent or a lifelong criminal. He was 22, a young man whose anger was sharpened online, whose political obsession transformed into violence. His story mirrors a generation raised in digital forums where extreme views fester unchecked, where ideology becomes identity, and where hatred becomes currency. Whether he leaned too far left, too far right, or oscillated between both hardly matters. What matters is that the internet gave him a stage long before he found a rooftop. And for the nation, the case of Charlie Kirk is a warning. Political violence is no longer unthinkable. It can erupt in a lecture hall, at a campaign rally, in a classroom. It thrives on division, feeds on anger, and spreads through the cracks of a society too distracted to notice the warning signs until it is too late. As the trial of Tyler Robinson moves forward, the country will watch. Some will demand the death penalty. Others will plead for answers instead of vengeance. But one truth will remain. What happened at Utah Valley University was not just an attack on a man, but on the fragile promise that ideas can be debated without fear. And in that shadow, America must now decide how to protect not only its leaders, but also its future, from the silence that can be shattered in a single shot.